So I'm Steve Batley, landscape architect and permaculture designer, and I'm here at Barrett House in Sydney's eastern suburbs, which is a house run by three councils, Woollahra, Waverley and Randwick. And it's set up really well, I think, to show what people can do at home really easily and really simply to live more sustainably. So inside the house we've got energy saving devices, water saving devices, and out in the garden we've got a productive permaculture garden that you can come and look at and learn from. We run workshops here every month. Every Thursday morning, the first Thursday of the month, we have a gardening workshop. And today we're showing how to set up a wicking bed, which is a self-watering pot made out of a half wine barrel. Now these things are fantastic because they're readily available, they're recycled material, they smell like old wine, which is fabulous, they're cost effective, and they grow fantastic plants. Okay, so you could just buy one of these wine barrels, fill it up with soil, put a couple of holes in the bottom and plant it out, and it will go fine. But we're going to create a self-watering pot. So we want to make our plants grow really, really well and have plenty of access to water and save yourself some time watering by creating a wicking bed. And essentially what we're doing is making a big version of one of these. So you're probably familiar with these. This is a self-watering pot. And the way they work is there's a water reservoir at the bottom, and the plants and the soil are in, or the soil is in contact with that water reservoir, and the water wicks up through the soil and waters the plants. So we can create one of those in a self-watering, in a wine barrel, and we're going to do that. So let's get started. The first thing you need to do is get a few materials together. So obviously your wine barrel, and to create the water reservoir in the bottom, we want to seal it. So we need some sort of material to seal the bottom of the wine barrel. You could use pond liner, plastic, or in this case we're using paint on bitumen waterproofer. You need some sort of either gravel or ag pipe to hold the water in the bottom, some material, some soil and some plants. So we'll get going. So when you buy your wine barrel, get a good one. You know, these cost about $90, but they're really solid and really beautiful piece of equipment. And as I said before, they smell fantastic. But what we want to do, when you get them, you'll notice inside often there's mold and dirt and stuff growing in the bottom. We need to clean that off because we're going to put some paint on waterproofing in here. So to clean it out, just give it a bit of a hose. Okay, we're just cleaning all the mold and any dirt that's on the inside of the barrel. You could use a high pressure water cleaner, or you could use a scrubbing brush. That will do the trick. So you can see that all that dirt that's off there. I'll just empty that out. So one of the really important things when you're making a wicking bed is the depth of the soil above the water reservoir. Okay, now water is subject to gravity just like we are, and it will only wick up through the soil or soak up through the soil to around about 300 millimeters, 300, 350 mil. So these are the ideal depth because 300 mil from the top is around about there. And that gives us about 100, 150 millimeters of water reservoir at the bottom. So what we're going to do, as we've done with this one, is put a hole 300 mil from the top. So we'll drill our overflow, our water outlet at that point. There we go. Okay. So that will seal on the inside. So, but it will allow us to, once we put the seal on, to direct the water. And it also, on the inside, it sets the water level obviously at that depth. So we've done that. We'll just clean out the sawdust and then we can start waterproofing. So you can probably see in this barrel that we've prepared earlier, there's our hole, and you can see this black material here. This is a brush-on bitumen-based waterproofing agent. Landscapers and builders use it behind retaining walls to create a waterproof seal. It's perfect for this kind of situation. It's easy to apply, it's non-toxic, it's safe to use, and just takes a little bit of time. I'll show you how to start doing it on this one over here. It's a bitumen-based waterproofing agent, so it's non-toxic. You can use it in water tanks for potable water, and it's just a brush-on waterproofing sealant. There's lots of different varieties of it, but essentially it's good in this context because it's really neat. Now the first coat of it, you need to have it watered down. So you put some of I'll show you the gooey stuff in a minute, but you mix it up with some water. And it's quite a runny material, and this is a primer, so this will soak into the timber and really create a good seal. Now if you have a favourite paintbrush, don't use it because paintbrushes get ruined really quickly using this material. So this is the first coat. It's quite thin, but it's just a primer. So slap it on, and we only need to go up to that point. And it doesn't matter with this, it's actually beneficial if the timber is wet. It helps the bitumen, the first coat, the primer, to stick to the timber. It's really messy stuff though. So this is one method, this is one material that you can use. Another option, you could use a pond liner, which is basically a sheet of rubber that people use to line ponds. We just need something that will hold a reservoir of water. Now, I wouldn't recommend using plastic, builder's plastic or that sort of plastic, because it deteriorates over time. It just needs a tiny little pinhole and the whole thing fails as a wicking bed. So that's stage one. The only downside, I guess, of using this bitumen is it takes 24 hours to dry between coats. So that's the primer, and this is the real deal. It's gooey stuff, but as you can see, it just creates a thick, impenetrable, impermeable layer. Okay, and you'd want to do 2 or 3 thick coats of this gooey material on the inside. So there's 3 or 4 days of waterproofing it. But you want this to hold water, otherwise it doesn't work as a wicking bed, so it's worth the effort. You can get this material from any hardware store, landscape supplier. So we finished waterproofing the inside with the black bitumen material. Another thing that's worthwhile doing with your half wine barrels is waterproofing, or at least putting some oil on the outside and on the inside where the soil will come in contact with it. You want to do this because if these guys dry out too much, the timber shrinks and you get big cracks in the side, so it can potentially fail. So I've given this a couple of coats of a natural organic timber oil, and you might want to keep doing that every 6 months or so just to keep it fresh and healthy. We've got our pipe, our water tank overflow, in she goes. And so you've got a couple of options to create our reservoir at the bottom to hold water. We could put gravel in up to the point where the outlet is, or in this case we're going to use this agricultural pipe. It's perforated, it's got holes all the way through, creates a great reservoir for the water to sit in. So as you can see, that just sits nicely in the bottom, because what we're doing is creating a void. That's 100mm diameter ag pipe, so we've got 100mm depth of water in the bottom there. Okay, so now what we need to do is create a barrier between where the water is and the soil. So we've got some of this material, which is called geofabric, or it's landscaping fabric, and what it does, it's like a filter. It lets the water through, but it holds the soil away. So we can Cover our egg pipe into the geofabric. Like that. And now what we'll do is we'll fill it up with water so we get a feel for the level of the water over the top of the geofabric, because we want just a little bit of water sitting on top of it so there's good contact between the soil and the water so it can wick up. But we don't want it too deep because it'll get anaerobic and smelly, but we want some contact. So we'll fill it up and we'll see. There we go. Take a while. Okay, so that's where we stop because the water's just starting to overflow. So that's our water level. Now we'll just wait for it to kind of find its level. Just like our self-watering pot, we want to create some divots in this surface so that the soil can get down into the water in parts. And we're kind of naturally getting that with the ag pipe. So we've got a bit of a dip happening here. A few dips around here. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think that will work pretty well. That's good. So now we fill it up with our soil mix. This is a purchased product that I got this morning from a landscape suppliers. You can make your own beautiful mix for a wicking bed, for a half wine barrel wicking bed, out of a mixture of sand, coconut fibre and compost. And maybe we'll show you how to do that either in another workshop or a little bit later. But we've got our soil mix, we've got our reservoir of water ready to go that you've seen. We want to cover up our outlet with some more of the fabric, just so it doesn't clog up with soil. So we'll put some more of this on. And we're going to put in a little pipe. This is 50mm ag pipe. I'm going to put it in over this side, and that's where we actually put the water in when we're watering our plant. So that will feed down. You can just put it on the top, or we can tuck it in the side. And I'll cut that just to the right length. So when we water our plant, instead of watering the top of the soil, once it's established, we can put the water in there, it goes straight into the reservoir, soaks up into the root zone. We don't waste any water from evaporation. It's all in the soil where it's needed. So now we fill it up. Now you can see as the soil goes in, there is definitely contact between the soil and the water. Okay, you wouldn't want much more than about 1 centimetre, or the soil at the bottom will be permanently wet and will become anaerobic and smelly. So that's about right. About 1 centimetre will be enough contact for the water to wick without becoming too waterlogged. Okay, so we've got our soil up to about 50mm from the top. So that will compact down a fair bit over time. There's a lot of air in here. We don't want to push it down too much because we want our soil to be nice and light and fluffy. There's plenty of nutrients in there, but we can make it better, and we can make our plants go nuts by putting in some compost and some maybe a bit of blood and bone, and we'll mulch the thing. So we'll get our plants going really well. But first we'll put our main plant in. So this is a curry leaf. It's related to Morea, but don't hold that against it. It's actually really good to add to curry. It gives our flavour of curry, and it'll grow really well in a pot like this. So to plant, we just want to make just like planting in the garden, make a hole in our bed. cut the bag away. Okay, that's a really good root system for a plant like this. It even comes with a bonus worm to populate our pot with some worms. The roots are pretty good, not pot bound. And we want to set the height, so we want that height to be level with the top of the pot. So I need to go a bit deeper. It's probably about right, because it will sink a little bit over time. We backfill. Make sure it's straight. Okay. Now we're going to throw a little bit of no-dig gardening on the top, because that's probably the best method for creating healthy soil. And no-dig is essentially just putting layers of different material on top of the soil. Now, the best thing to add to your soil by far is your own homegrown compost or your own homegrown worm castings. We don't have any homegrown compost or worm castings here, so in its absence we bought some mushroom compost, some enriched cow manure. We've got some looks like chook pellets and some blood and bone. Now, whenever you're using bagged materials, you should read the label. Lots of health warnings on the back, and those health warnings are there for a reason, because when you put any organic matter into a bag like this, bacteria can breed up, and if that bacteria happens to be one that's harmful to people, you open the bag, you breathe it in, or you eat it, you can get really, really sick. So people have actually died from Legionnaire's disease from opening bags of potting mix. But it's easy to manage. You just wear a mask, a dust mask, and some gloves, and make sure you wash your hands really well. So as I mentioned, we just want to layer up different layers of different materials. So we'll put a bit of this chook manure down, a little bit of blood and bone, and just incorporate those a little bit. And the other thing about our bag products, I always recommend using ones that are certified organic. Okay, so that's the certification logo. Just about every product that you can buy in a nursery these days says the word organic on it. It doesn't mean it's organic unless you've got that certification logo, and that's your guarantee that whatever's gone in here is organic, and it can be used by organic farmers to grow food. So you can see that's a really nice clump of cow manure. So we'll put some of that on the top. Lovely stuff. Also got some certified organic mushroom compost. Now at this stage, the more diversity of materials and the diversity of nutrients that you can get onto your plants, the better they'll go. So each of these, that's worms in there. Each of these products and compost has a different range of nutrients. And we'll finish it off with some lucerne hay. A good thick layer of mulch makes all the difference to how well your plants will grow. I like to use lucerne because, again, it's got a broad range of nutrients in it. So it actually breaks down and feeds your plants. It also holds the moisture in. It keeps all the bacteria and the worms and the fungi and the life in the soil alive, and they break down and they feed your plants. So by doing this to the top of your wicking bed, you're saving water, but you're creating ideal conditions for this guy and the other plants that we're going to put in to grow really, really well. So you want to maintain at least that much mulch on top of the soil at all times. Then we give it a drink, just to settle it all in. So we're going to plant it out using a permaculture technique called a guild. And the idea is that we plant a range of plants that all work together to create a little mini ecosystem. So we've got a diverse range of plants. Diversity is a key concept. We want to take up as much of this space, not just this space, but this space as we can, with productive plants. So we've got some beetroot. So those guys will actually grow into the mulch. We've got produce in the mulch, and we've also can eat the leaves. So beetroot are a really good productive plant. We've got some rocket. We've got some pak choi, some Asian greens, really fast growing. These are great because you can pick the outside leaves, leave the plant growing, and you get a constant feed. Same with all of these. We've got some flowers in there. Now the flowers will help on a number of fronts. They'll look good. You can eat these little violets. They look fantastic in a salad. They'll help with pest management because they'll actually attract beneficial insects which can help manage our pests on our plants for us. We've got some possum mauled parsley, which I managed to rescue from the backyard before it got completely trashed. So parsley and chives. So putting some herbs in with your leafy greens and your flowers and your root vegetables helps also with pest management because the smell helps to deter and confuse the pests. We've also got some little sugar snap peas. Now these guys we'll put in around our curry plant because he's created a perfect vertical structure for these peas to grow up. And the peas are a legume, so that means that they take nitrogen out of the air and put it in the soil, so they're actually feeding the rest of our plants. So this diverse range of plants will ensure we get maximum productivity and they'll all work together to help each other grow. So we'll start with the peas. Now it's important when you're putting mulch onto the garden not to have it up and around the stem of the plant because that can cause it to go rotten and it will fail, it will die. So you want to create a bit of an airspace around the stem, but that, if we keep pushing that gives us a great opportunity to put our pea seeds in. Now these I'd plant about 10 centimetres apart, so we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6. And we'll just push them into the soil. Okay, cover them over, tamp them down a little bit, and they should germinate, no worries. Now we'll go for some pak choi. Now I like to plant in little clumps. So rather than having rows or circles or big groups, if we just plant them in clumps of 3, so maybe we'll have, I'll just space them out first. So we'll have some pak choi over there. We'll put some chives here. We'll put some flowers here. We'll have some parsley here, maybe some beetroot here, and some rocket. Now with these little pots, there must be a dozen parsley plants in there. Now there's 2 ways to plant these. You can divide them up into individual plants or little groups of plants, or you can bung the whole thing in. Look, I'm just going to bung the whole thing in because that's sort of the way I like to do it. And what that means is that each of these individual plants won't grow into a full plant, but they'll grow into a little clump of parsley, and we can just come out with our scissors whenever we need some parsley and chop a little bit off. Okay. Beetroot, on the other hand, we want to divide them out into individual plants. These also got mauled by my possums in the backyard, so they don't look so hot, but they'll come good. They've got some good new growth coming out of the middle. But we could probably put about 4 or 5 beetroots in this space. Now, as with our main tree, it's important when you're planting your little seedlings not to put them in too deep, and you don't want to have soil around the stem because that can cause them to go rotten. So we're digging deep down into the mulch, finding the soil, popping them in, and we want to have some space around that stem for them to grow really well. So we'll just put 3. Okay. So a little clump of 3. So we're fully planted out. Little clumps of 3, different things around the place: parsley, violets, pak choi, rocket, beetroot, and our curry plant, our curry tree. Oh, and our sugar snap peas around the base, which will grow up here. So in about 2 or 3 months' time, this will just be bursting with food. In a few weeks, we might be able to harvest the first leaves of the pak choi. Maybe the rocket will come through in about a month. The parsley will be less than a month. Beetroot will be a bit longer. So we can start eating from this in, I'd say, less than a month. It's going to be really easy to look after. We've got the mulch, we've got plenty of food, got that sorted. We've got our self-watering reservoir at the bottom. We just have to water through here. We'll need to water from the top probably for a week or 2 just to get these little guys established, but once they're established, it'll water itself. So the only thing we need to do is make sure maybe once a week, depends on the time of year, is just to keep that topped up and it'll water itself. The other thing we need to do is keep our chooks and our possums off it, because otherwise they'll get all the food and we won't get any of it. If you don't have the space or the time, I guess, to set this up, you can buy self-watering pots ready to go. So this is one version. You know, it's got a different look. It does the same thing. Okay, you can just buy it off the shelf, fill it up with soil, and away you go. The water reservoir in the bottom, you can see. It's another one, different shape. This would be suitable for a dwarf fruit tree. It's got enough depth, enough size. This one's a fantastic for your herbs or your lettuces or your your rocket. A lot of these little guys will happily grow in here. Good on a windowsill or a ledge. Doesn't take up much space. This is a nifty little guy. It's on wheels, so you can move it around the place. You can see it's just got this insert which creates the self-watering mechanism. It's got the pipe coming up that you water into, and it's got this, which I think goes in like that, and that rises and falls with the water level. So it's got a little dipstick that tells you whether it's full or it's empty. It doesn't actually have an overflow, so you just need to be a little bit careful that you don't overfill it, because it'll become a pond rather than a pot plant. And there's probably other varieties available. You can make a wicking bed out of a corrugated iron garden bed. This timber bed over the back here is actually a wicking bed. So we did the same process that we showed you in this garden bed. So you can really make it out of anything. And it's worth the effort, because your plants will grow better and you'll get more productivity.